What's up, YouTube? Today we're talking about why your equipment doesn't matter and you shouldn't buy into the hype. Okay, so first and foremost, when people have this discussion, they talk about how story is king, which that's true, but that's more of a cliche answer. So we're going to get that out of the way first, and then we're going to talk about some more ideas behind that. Now, when people say story is king, they basically mean that no matter what you shoot on, whether it be a high-end camera, a low-end camera, if your story is shit, then nobody's going to care about it and nobody's going to watch it. Okay, so with that, I'm not saying that you don't have to have the right tool for the right job, because you wouldn't walk into a big budget film set with an 80D necessarily and try and shoot it that way, because there's certain expectations on certain sets. But for a wide variety of any project you could shoot, the lower level or prosumer DSLRs can cover about 98% of that. Okay, so what prompted me to shoot this video was I was watching another YouTuber reviewing a product. I was in the market to buy a couple more speed lights because I do an equal amount of photography and video work. So I have these two speed lights here, and I've been using these for about 6 or 7 years. And so I was wanting to get more of these because these have been good to me. They are actually third party, or some people would call them off-brand. These I've thrown around, I've thrown in my bag. They've fallen off my light stands about 6 or 7 foot high onto the pavement, and they still work like the day I bought them. So I was looking to buy some more because there's newer models out, and I review everything. I check out reviews for everything on YouTube and Amazon before I purchase anything. So the YouTuber I was watching, he was reviewing some of these. These are Yongnuo speed lights. And he did an excellent review on them, and he was so hyped on these speed lights, talking about how much he loved them until the end. And then that's when it made me start feeling bad for the guy, because he started talking about how his last step in setting up his speed lights is he covers up the branding. He covers up Yongnuo here, he covers up the branding back here, because he's too embarrassed to be shooting with something that is not name brand. And he's scared that people will look at him like he's not a professional. Now, there's two things wrong there. One is he should be letting his images and his video, if he does video, his images speak for him to brand him as professional, not his gear. Me personally, I let my video and my photography speak for itself. Hopefully it brands me as a professional. I believe that guy should do the same. Secondly, people looking at you like you're less than them or that you're not a professional just because of the gear you use is one of the major things that's wrong with this industry. That is never the case. You should never be worried about that. You should always just be worried about the content you're putting out, not what you're using to produce it. So, with that said, I don't care about that. I use Yongnuo proudly. I have Yongnuo flashes, I have Yongnuo triggers. I'll be getting 3 more Yongnuo flashes, so I'll be running Yongnuo 5 deep. So if you see me out there on the streets, come say what's up, come check out the Yongnuos. I know other photographers that use them. You can't tell the difference between those and the Canon and Nikon speed lights. And let me tell you one more thing about these. These right here, depending on where you buy them, you can get them for $100 or a little less than that. A Nikon or Canon branded speed light that does virtually exactly the same thing, it looks exactly the same, will run you $400 or $500. So if I was buying 3 speed lights, I would spend $300 on these, or $1,500 on a Canon speed light, or 3 Canon speed lights. That's a difference of $1,200. Now, what would you do? $1,200 can buy you a Canon 80D brand new that can be a B cam, or it can buy you an array of lenses, it can buy you several lenses, or it can buy you one good L series lens, or a used L series lens, and then something like a Rokinon or a Sigma lens. You know, so what you have to think about is you have to think about not what other people are going to think, but how are you going to judge and how are you going to gauge the longevity of your career. Because if you sit here and you buy these more expensive products that you don't necessarily have to get, you're just getting them for the name, you know, that's not investing wisely in yourself, in your business, and it's ultimately going to shorten your career if you're just throwing money out the window. Because an extra $1,200, that could be 2 weeks to a month for some people of covering bills, and that is 2 weeks to a month that you could have a slow month where you're not getting any jobs, or where you can take off time from work from your 9 to 5 to go, and you could fly somewhere to shoot something, say abandoned buildings in Detroit, or you could go overseas and shoot landscapes or wildlife. Who knows? $1,200, you can do a lot with that in this game. I'll tell you about why I think shitty gear is good for your career. Okay, so when you start out, you're kind of in the trenches down here. You're kind of just like, it's like shoveling shit, and you know, you don't know how to use this stuff. You're trying to figure things out. You're trying to figure out you know, your ISO, you're trying to figure out your how to properly expose, you're trying to figure out your shutter speed, you're trying to figure out your f-stops, and this most low-level gear and prosumer gear are more bare bones than the higher end stuff. The higher end stuff, the reason you see a lot of these people that you idolize, and I idolize a lot of them, is because they use this higher end gear because it makes their life more convenient. It's not, they're not getting better images because they're using that gear. They would get amazing images if they used a Canon 80D, the same as they're using a Canon 1DX Mark II. You know, they're going to get amazing images either way. It's just how their mind works, and the amount of effort that they're putting in. And that's what separates them from people that aren't making great content. Now, with that said, is I believe that, you know, you need to start with the bare bones, and you need to work your way up the ranks, and you need to go through consumer to prosumer to full grade, high end, professional end cameras, and finally get that coveted Canon, you know, 1DX Mark II, or that red camera that you want, and it'll make you a better filmmaker working your way up. Because if you just jump into say, hey, you know, I got a loan for $50K, I'm gonna go buy this, you know, this Red Epic, or I'm gonna buy this, you know, Red Dragon, you know, and you don't know how to properly light, or you don't know how to properly expose an image, you don't know how to properly compose a shot, how long is that $50K investment gonna sit on that shelf? How long are you gonna be putting out bad material with a $50,000 camera, when you should, at that level, be producing grade A content? You know, I know people that do nothing but buy red cameras, and they have these red cameras, and they basically have bought them to legitimize themselves as a filmmaker, because all the content I've seen them put out are selfies of them holding their red camera. They have never put out content, and that's the way that they try to legitimize themselves as a filmmaker. I know other people that may put out 1 to 2 videos a year, and they're okay, they're subpar, but myself and my friends that shoot with the 80D, and I got friends that still shoot with the T3 and T3i, and even the T2i, put out not only better looking content, but more content on average than these people I know. So they're basically sitting on these 30, 40, 50K investments, and they're not doing anything with it. So when you use these lower end cameras, it really teaches you the fundamentals, and it gets you ready for that next move. Plus, it keeps you hungry to get that next camera. Now, you look at something like this. This is a 35mm film camera. It's a Minolta Himatic AF2. This is pretty bare bones. The major thing this was touting back in the day was it had autofocus, so that's about all this had going for it. If you've ever shot 35mm or film in general, you know that every time you hit the shutter button, you're spending money. It's basically, you're basically putting money in this thing. It could be anywhere from 50 cents to $1 plus, depending on the type of film you buy. Now the thing with that is, you can take this camera, and this camera can produce better images than any DSLR on the market, and that's because if you know what you're doing with bare bones cameras like this, or a T2i or T3i or Canon 80D, you can make better work than your top of the line cameras. It all comes from willing to put in the effort, or the content that you're creating. You know, story is king. but it's also how much are you willing to practice. I mean, it's like anything else. It's like football or basketball or anything. You always have to be practicing to progress your art form. Now let's talk about with the same thing with the 35 millimeter. All these old photographers, all these famous photographs that you see, these were all taken back in the early 1900s. These Ansel Adams, these Watkins, these Sanders, these Grady photos, you know, these legendary pictures that you see, they were taken with bare bones cameras. They were taken with Kodak Brownies or old Hasselblads or old Polaroid land cameras. And these cameras were so heavy and so archaic and just not advanced in any way, shape, or form that a T2i or, you know, just like any kind of old Rebel Canon camera outperforms it in every way. But these guys knew what they were doing because they're basically the forefathers of photography. They knew the ins and outs of the cameras. They knew how it worked. So that's how they produced these amazing images. And it's the same with you. You know, you can produce these images just like they did if you're willing to put in the time to learn how these cameras work. You don't need the top of the line equipment. You just need what you have. You just need to turn it on and you just need to shoot. Ansel Adams has a quote that is, "A good photograph is knowing where to stand." And what that means is it doesn't matter which camera you're using. All you have to do is turn it on. And I'm just making a plea to you, don't ever feel embarrassed, ever, for the gear that you're using. It doesn't matter what it is. Don't worry about what the industry thinks, because if you put in the time and effort, you will create something amazing. And if you're not creating amazing content right now, your time will come if you're creating it. Everybody goes through ups and downs, and you might be in a down right now, but I promise you that you're going to make something great very soon if you continually shoot and you're willing to put in the time. So I hope you guys are gaining some value from my videos. So if you are, just hit the subscribe button for plenty more like this. Go ahead and smash the like button. And please, most importantly, comment so you can engage back and forth with me. While you're there on my channel, check out my Instagram and go ahead and you can DM me and we can chat back and forth, maybe collaborate on a video or just get together and shoot. And just remember, guys, just go shoot.